So I mentioned before about Bullet's leaderboard games. So I managed to make the top 5 in the leaderboard. This gave me free roll into the tournament, so I didn't have to pay any more money in, and there was a chance to win $2,000 all up. Now this is going to be the first big tournament that I'm going to show you, so it's going to be fairly more involved, especially after I decided to buy a $700 suit for a friend's wedding. I mean, it looks pretty good, but now I've got to win. So with that in mind, better get to the game, eh? So the way this leaderboard free roll works is for each venue that hosts a game, the top 8 players from that venue across the course of 15 weeks are eligible to play in this game. The higher up the leaderboard you finish, the more chips that you start with. So the first hand we're going to look at, we have King 10 of Hearts in the low jack. The blinds are just 50, 100. And at this point we still have our starting stack of 35k. Someone in early position raises to 400. Even though it's still really early in the game, I want to try and push things a bit. So I decided to 3-bet because I feel my hand is too strong to just call. Then the initial raiser from early position 4-bets me to 6,000. This is where I start to reassess my decision, wishing I had just flat called their raise and seen a flop. However, their re-raise is too large for me to continue here, so unfortunately I have to let this one go. Second hand, we have King Queen offsuit in the hijack. We've lost a few hands, so we're down to about 32k. Blinds now 1 and 2. Again, the person to my right raises, this time to 500. I decide just to flat call here, given what happened before, with my hand slightly less strong as it was. The small blind also calls, and we see a flop, and it's 6, 8, 10, 2 diamonds. The small blind checks, and the initial raiser bets 400. I decide at this point with 2 overs to the board, the bet's quite cheap, I'll see an extra card. The small blind also calls, and we see a turn. The turn comes, the 2 of clubs. The small blind checks again, and the initial raiser bets out 300 this time. Again, really cheap. So we call with still 2 overs to the board. Small blind calls, and we see the river. And the river comes, the 3 of spades. Could be better. Like 1 better. Small blind checks again, the raiser checks, and I also check, hoping we've got a bit of showdown value with king high. Obviously, someone has a pair here. Small blind shows 10 for the higher pair. The initial raiser has a pair of 8s. So we were losing all the way around there, needed to hit either one of our overs, but we'll move on. For the very next hand, we wake up with 2 red 4s. Missed a bit of the action here, but I'm in the low jack and I decide to raise here, given that the person that I'm attacking is quite short on chips at this point. Unfortunately, the person I am targeting decides to go all in for their 8,400 stack remaining. I feel like we're probably ahead, but he's definitely got 2 overs and I'm flipping at best. I don't think it's worth it at this stage. I think to give up that much of my stack, it's about a third at this stage. I'm not willing. I'll sacrifice the 1,500 and we'll move on. So we have to wait a little while till we pick up our hand. This time we're on the button. We are 200, 400 blinds and we have pocket 3s. Our stack has dwindled to just over 30k at this point. Folds around to us on the button and we decide to pop it up to about 4x the blinds here, so 1,600. We do end up with 1 caller and we see a flop. That flop happens to be 3 queens, which doesn't look the best, but we have flopped a boot or a boat or a full house, whatever you want. We're in position and it's checked to us. We decide that we've probably got to be good here most of the time, so we put a nice little bet out, 1,600 again, and we get a fold, so we get it through. And that's our first winning hand of the session, thank Christ. Blinds are up again, they're 300, 600, and we find ourselves in the cutoff with King 10 of diamonds. There's 1 limper before us, and then we decide to raise to 1,800. Both the small and the big blind fold, and the limper calls, and we go to a flop. And it's a pretty terrible flop for our hand. We have 8 of clubs, 9 of clubs, 9 of spades. Luckily the limper checks, so I can check back to see a turn. Turn brings in the 5 of diamonds. Doesn't really change much here. This is where the limper bets out 1,000. I still have 2 overs to the board. If he's got a 9, he's good, but I'll see 1 more card for 1,000. It's pretty cheap. Pot's only 5.5 right now. Unfortunately, the river brings in a queen, missing both of our overs to the board, and the limper bets out 2.5k. We can't call here. We've got king high. I open fold, and he shows 6s, so well done. So next hand we have King 10 again. Let's try and get some redemption. We're in the small blind, and the blinds are 400, 800. There's 2 limpers, and it gets to me, and I decide to raise to 2,400. Big blind folds, and one of the limpers call, and we go to a flop. And this time we hit our flop. We have 9, king 4, 2 hearts. So we hit top pair with a mediocre kicker. Here I bet out 3,500 to try and push out any potential straight or flush draws. Queen 10, queen jack, or any hearts. The limper calls the 3.5k and we see a turn. The turn comes and pairs the board with the 9 of diamonds. I check and the limper checks behind. And this is where I think I make my first mistake. I'm more concerned about that board pairing 9 than I really should be. If he's got a 9 or a better king and he calls, good on him. I should be more concerned about any flush or straight draws getting there, so I should really charge those. And that's exactly what happens. The river comes a 6 of hearts, making the flush, and I'm pretty sure I know he's got it at this point. And here's where I make my second mistake. Even though I've let the flush get there, I check the river, knowing that he's got it. He bets 5,000, and I cycle. And he has 7, 8 of hearts. I let him get there, and that was my fault all round. I played that hand terribly. A few more hands go by, and we wake up with ace jack offsuit on the button. Blinds are now 1,000, 2,000, and we decide to punish the 2 limpers that we have in front of us by raising to 6,000. We do, however, still get 2 callers. We also get some excitement because it appears that someone's only calling because they want to be on the vlog. We see a flop and it's king, 6, 9, 2 spades. We miss everything. Checks around to see a turn, and it's the 8 of clubs. It checks around again, and the river's the 2 of diamonds. The person excited to be on the vlog bets out 6,000. I'm now feeling that he might be just doing that to get under my skin. But I've got ace high, I can't really call. If he's bluffing with less, then well done, but nah, I'll let it go. Maybe a bigger raise pre-flop would have got him off any holding, but we'll never know. I also don't want to give him the satisfaction. Try harder next time, buddy. Now we're starting to get into a bit of trouble. We're quite short stacked and we're on the big blind with the blinds 2,000, 4,000. But luckily we wake up with queen 10 of diamonds. There are 2 limpers. It folds around to the small blind. The small blind folds. I go all in for an extra 8,000 and both limpers call. So we have 2 live players to see the flop. And the flop becomes 3, 5, queen with 2 diamonds, so we hit top pair and have a flush draw still live. Both limpers check and the turn comes 9 of hearts. Still thinking we're pretty good with our top pair and we still have our flush redraw. And the flush gets there on the river with the ace of diamonds with what is the 3rd nuts. On the river, the initial limper leads out for 4,000 and the second limper folds. The limper rolls over pocket 2s, so we scoop a nice little triple up. And only a few hands later, blinds are now 3,000, 6,000, and I'm in the cutoff. We get another fortunate run of cards as we pick up pocket aces. The bullets at bullets. Player in early position goes all in, covering our stack of 34,000. So when it folds round to us, we obviously just have to call this off, and we get to see a run out. Player shows pocket 10s, and obviously we're way ahead at this point, but we need to fade a 10. And fade a 10 we do, as a run out comes 8, king 5, 2 clubs, turns the ace of diamonds just to rub it in, and the jack of spades on the river. Completely inconsequential. We get a favourable double up. Much needed at this stage in the game, and now we can go on and run deep. And 2 ends later, the premiums keep on coming. We have pocket queens in the small blind. Blinds are still 3,000 to 6,000. The under the gun player goes all in for 8,000. Folds around to us, and I decide to raise to 16k to try and get some extra value out of the big blind if they decide to call. Unfortunately, they fold, and we're up against ace 9 of clubs. And the run out comes 10 of clubs, ace of hearts, 5 of clubs, 8 of clubs, jack of spades, and he hits his flush and his pair. So we're no good all round. Doesn't dent us too badly, but it would have been nice to win. And it doesn't take long because only 5 hands later we have pocket queens again. Let's see if we can get redemption. I'm on the button and it folds around to me, and I decide to put some pressure on a short stack in the blinds and go all in for 51k. Not that I really needed to. I'm pretty strong here. The short stack in the blind only has 25k behind and calls, so we're heads up. And we're up against pocket 6s. Again, queens need to hold, and the flop comes king 5, 10, turns a 5, rivers a king, and queens hold this time. And with that knockout, we make it to the final table. So the first big hand that we make on a final table, we have pocket 4s, under the gun +1. Blinds are now 10,000, 20,000. Under the gun limps, we decide to go all in for 85k. Folds around to the big blind, who goes all in for less, and reluctantly turns over pocket kings, as if they know they've already lost. So at this point, we're absolutely crushed. See you later, bye bye. And let's cut to the table talk.
Oh yeah, let's think negative already when I've got pocket kings.
Although we do have hope of hitting a 4. Or, as it turns out, 2 on the flop, which means we flop quads. So we're pretty solid there. So maybe the big blind did know something that I didn't going into that hand. But, not going to complain. We've now got a lovely chip stack going in for the rest of this final table. Now we're on the button with Jack 9 suited. Folds around to me, and again I decide to put some pressure on these blinds by raising to 40k. The big blind then goes all in for 60k, only another 20k for me to call, so I obviously have to call this, and this time we're up against Ace Deuce offsuit, so they're currently ahead. However, that changes around quite quickly as we flop 2 pair and pretty much having drawing dead. So that means we're now down to 4-handed, so only 3 to go until we win. So far we've locked up about 300 bucks, so about halfway to paying for that suit. So the very next hand we wake up with pocket aces. What a time to be alive. And the big blind is big blind only, as we knocked out the would-be small blind. We decide to just min-raise their blind. Oh, what? Very tight. And apparently everyone's playing super tight as we get no action. We take 20k for our aces. That's fine. Only a few hands later again, and we wake up with Ace 10 offsuit in the small blind. Blinds are still 10 and 20k. Again, this folds around to us, and we decide it's a good opportunity to keep putting pressure on these big blinds with short stacks. So we raise to 80k, hoping for a fold. The big blind then goes all in for less, and it's as if karma has come to get us as we're up against pocket 4s with the 4 of spades. So at this point, we'll still need to hit to win. Flop comes no help with 3 king 7 rainbow, turns the 5 of hearts, and bang, miracle ace from space on the river. We get there, knocking a player out and bumping ourselves up to 3rd place minimum. So 3-handed we go, and we find ourselves with Jack Queen of hearts on the button. Blinds are up and they're 15k, 30k. As a bit of a chip bully, I decide to raise again to 80k. I get an all in from the small blind, who's only in for an extra 30k, 45 all up, and the other player folds. And we're up against Queen 10 of diamonds. So we both woke up with decent hands. Obviously I'm currently ahead, so no diamonds, no 10, and I'll be golden. And that's exactly what happens. The run out comes 9, 6, king on the flop, turns an 8, rivers a deuce, and we hold, eliminating the 3rd player, so we're now heads up. The suit's paid for itself. Now the heads up play slightly differs as we're both the button and the small blind. Also your ranges of hands that you should play widen quite considerably as you only have to get past 1 player. And we finally find ourselves with a premium holding of Ace Jack offsuit. I decided to be tricky and try and trap by just flat calling the big blind, and the big blind checks. We see a flop of 7-3 ace hitting top pair. Big blind in this situation is first to act and leads out for 40,000. We decide to go all in and he snap folds. And only a couple of hands later, we find ourselves in the big blind with pocket 7s. Small blind raises to 80k. We snap shove all in and we get a snap call. Kind of shitting myself at this point, wondering what he's got. And you wouldn't believe how chuffed I am when I see that he's got 7-5 offsuit. So him hitting a 7 is no good, as that gives me a set. The only thing that he could potentially win with is a straight. And when the flop comes 9, 6 king, he only needs an 8 to hit that. What do you think comes on the turn? Yep. Although I'm not dead. Oh wait, no, yes I am. Rivers a deuce. I lose pocket 7s to 7-5 with a straight. So thankfully I finished 2nd. Would have been good to have 1st there, but unfortunately 7-5 offsuit obviously beats a pair of 7s. But when it's heads up, it gets a bit crazy. And as for the suit, well, I basically paid for it with the 2nd place there, so not too shabby. To make sure that I don't get into the same sort of predicament as I did with this suit situation, it'll be sensible for me to manage my bankroll in some way or another, maybe with a bankroll management app. That's where Poker Analytics 6 comes in, and you can check it out in the link in the description below, and that gives you access to the app so you can start tracking and monitoring. Utilising all the tools so you can see how much money you're wasting playing poker. Or winning, hopefully. And you can keep good tabs on your bankroll, which is something that I should be doing going forward. And I'll be sure to give you updates on my bankroll as we go along. In the meantime, check out some of my other videos here, and until the next time, be lucky.